If you've been anywhere near ARMY Twitter or ARMY TikTok in the last couple of days, you've probably already seen a tiny clip of Jimin doing something on stage that made an entire section of Gillette Stadium lose it. And if you haven't seen it yet, stick with me for the next few minutes, because I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened, why it matters, and why this one small moment says more about who Jimin actually is than half the polished, planned-out content BTS puts out. Because this wasn't planned. This wasn't in the set list. This wasn't some pre-approved fan service segment written into a script by HYB. This was Jimin on the spot, reading a sign held up by a stranger in a stadium of tens of thousands of people, and deciding in real time to do something about it. So let's set the scene first, because context matters here more than people realize. This happened during the ARIRANG World Tour's stop at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, the tour's first visit to the Boston area, which is actually a pretty big deal on its own. This tour, by the way, is BTS's biggest ever. It's supporting their 5th studio album, ARIRANG, released back in March of 2026, and it marks something genuinely historic for the group. This is the first tour since all 7 members completed their mandatory military service, meaning this is the full lineup together on stage for the first time in years. The scale of it reflects that. We're talking 82 shows across 34 cities in 23 countries, running all the way into early 2027. BTS played 2 nights at Gillette Stadium, August 5th and August 6th, 2026, as part of the massive North American leg of that run, and this particular moment happened on night 2. Gillette Stadium holds somewhere around 65,000 people for a show like this, and the ARIRANG tour has been running with this incredible in-the-round stage setup, which basically means there's no bad seat in the house. Every single section gets a real, unobstructed view of all 7 members at some point in the show. That detail actually matters for what happens next, because it means when something happens on one side of that stage, it's not some hidden moment only 20 people saw. It's visible. It's exposed. There's nowhere to hide, and nowhere to fake it. Now here's where it gets good. Somewhere in that sold-out crowd, a fan was holding up a sign. And if you've watched enough of these tour stops, you know signs are basically a language of their own at this point. ARMY has turned fan signs into an art form, from elaborate banners to inside jokes only the fandom understands. This particular sign wasn't overly complicated. It was direct. It basically said something like, anything, just throw it to me, keychain, jacket, hat, whatever you've got. Simple. Playful. The kind of sign that's asking for exactly what it sounds like it's asking for. Give me something. Anything. I don't care what it is. I just want a piece of this moment to take home. And listen, this isn't actually a random ask. If you follow Jimin even a little bit on this tour, you'll know this man has basically made a habit out of giving things away to fans. And it's worth actually walking through why, because it makes the Foxborough moment land differently. Weeks earlier, during the tour stop in Munich, Germany, at Allianz Arena, Jimin was performing Blood, Sweat and Tears when he noticed a fan in the crowd holding up a banner that read she'd been waiting 9 years for this exact moment, and that she traveled all the way from Barcelona to be there. In the middle of the song, mid-performance, Jimin took off the jacket he was wearing on stage and had security pass it directly to her. That wasn't staged. That wasn't a planned bit written into the set list. That was Jimin reading a sign in real time and making a decision on the spot to give away something he was physically wearing in front of over 70,000 people. And that wasn't even the only headline-making moment from that Munich stop. The night before, a fan sign comparing him to footballer Erling Haaland went viral after Jimin, apparently prompted by J-Hope spotting it during soundcheck, recreated Haaland's now famous post-match walk on stage in front of the crowd, in Haaland's own home stadium, no less. Clips of that moment spread across social media within hours. So when you put those 2 Munich moments together, the walk and the jacket, you start to understand why a fan in Foxborough weeks later might hold up a sign asking for exactly this kind of interaction. Because Jimin has trained his own fan base, whether he meant to or not, to believe that if you ask, there's a real chance he actually delivers. So back to Foxborough. Jimin spots the sign. And based on the clips that have been circulating from fans who were there that night, his first reaction is exactly what you'd hope for. He notices it, and you can see him processing it, thinking about it, clearly enjoying the request. And then he does this thing that I think is honestly one of the funniest bits of physical comedy I've seen from him on this entire tour. He starts patting down his own pockets, like he's searching for something to actually throw. It's this exaggerated, almost cartoonish motion, like a guy checking his jacket for his car keys before he realizes he left them at home. He's playing it up for the crowd, clearly milking the moment, building the anticipation, letting everyone around him wonder what he's actually going to do. And this is the part where, if you were in that stadium, or watching the fan-shared clips afterward like I was, your stomach kind of drops for a second, because he reaches for the microphone. His microphone, the thing that is, obviously, the single most important piece of equipment on that stage for him in that exact moment. And for a split second, it genuinely looks like he might actually wind up and throw it into the crowd. Now, before you panic, no, he did not actually throw a live microphone into a stadium full of people. That would be an actual safety incident, and to be very clear, that is not what happened here. What happened is Jimin used the microphone as the punchline of his own bit. He held it up, made this big exaggerated motion like he was about to launch it into the audience, and then pulled it back at the last second with this look on his face like he was just as amused by his own joke as everyone watching him was. It's a tease. It's a wind-up. It's Jimin, in front of tens of thousands of people, deciding to troll his own audience for a few seconds of pure comedic timing, and it worked. Whatever section of that crowd caught it live was clearly losing their minds based on how loud the reaction sounds in the fan footage. Now I want to pause here for a second, because I think this is actually the whole point of why this clip is spreading the way it is. It's not really about the microphone. It's not even really about the sign. It's about the fact that Jimin, in the middle of a massive stadium show, on a tour with an insanely demanding schedule, in a completely different country from where he grew up, still has the bandwidth and the instinct to notice one single handmade sign in a sea of 65,000 people and turn it into a bit. That's not something you can coach into a performer. That's not choreography. That's just who he is when the lights are on and the crowd is watching. If this is the kind of breakdown you're here for, the stuff that happens off-script, the moments that don't make it into the official highlight reels but end up meaning the most to the people who catch them, this is exactly what this channel is built around. So if you haven't already, now's a good time to hit subscribe, because I'm covering this entire tour leg by leg, city by city, and there's a lot more where this came from. Now, here's something I want to be upfront about, because accuracy matters to me more than just chasing views. This specific moment, the sign, the pocket search, the mic tease, hasn't been picked up yet by the bigger entertainment outlets the way some of Jimin's other viral moments on this tour have been. Things like the Holland Walk in Munich or the jacket giveaway got written up by major K-pop press within a day or two. This one is still living almost entirely inside fan-shared clips and threads right now. That doesn't make it any less real. It clearly happened, there's footage of it. But it does mean we're relying on what fans in the building captured, not an official statement or a produced highlight video from the tour itself. I think that's actually part of what makes it interesting, honestly. Some of the best Jimin moments on this tour have come from exactly this kind of grassroots, fan-caught footage before the bigger outlets even notice it's a story. And speaking of that same Foxborough Day 2 show, this wasn't the only moment that night worth talking about. During the performance of Mic Drop, RM changed up the usual interlude section of the track, swapping out the English greeting for a Korean one instead, playing it off with a grin that had fans immediately clipping and sharing the moment. It was a small change, just a few seconds, but it's the kind of detail that shows these members are still actively playing with their own show even this deep into a world tour, tweaking bits, testing new ad-libs, keeping things from feeling repetitive night after night. And if you go back to the first night in Foxborough, August 5th, fans got a surprise performance of No More Dream, BTS's original 2013 debut track, which sent a very specific kind of chaos through the crowd because nobody expects a group headlining stadiums in 2026 to suddenly drop back into choreography from over a decade ago. Jimin and Jungkook ended up doing an impromptu dance break together during that surprise song, and the energy from that alone was enough to make people talk for days. Jimin also had this genuinely sweet moment during the ending segment of that first night where he personally walked around handing water bottles to each of his members one by one and used part of his closing speech to talk about growing up thinking he'd end up at Harvard if he ranked first in his class, which, in his own words, did not happen, before thanking the crowd and saying he wished the group had made it to the Boston area sooner. It's a small window into how he thinks about these cities, these crowds, These 2 hours he gets with people who, in a lot of cases, have been waiting years for this exact night. Even outside of Jimin's own moments, the Foxborough shows themselves picked up real critical attention. The Boston Globe covered the first night's performance directly, praising the production scale and specifically singling out the crowd's reaction to older tracks like Fake Love and Run, describing the stadium as trembling under the sheer force of the audience singing along. So when you put the mic-throwing tease from night 2 next to everything else that happened across those 2 shows, the surprise songs, the ad-libs, the water bottles, the closing speech, you start to see a pattern. This isn't a guy going through the motions on a massive world tour. This is someone who is still finding ways, city after city, night after night, to make individual moments feel personal, even inside a stadium holding tens of thousands of strangers. And that's honestly rare. If you've followed enough world tours from enough different artists, you know how easy it is for these shows to start feeling like a copy-paste routine by the 40th or 50th stop. Jimin, based on what's been coming out of this tour leg after leg, does not seem to be operating that way at all. You can actually trace that same thread all the way back through this tour: Madrid, Brussels, London, Paris, Munich, New Jersey, and now Boston. City after city, different languages, different crowds, and somehow the same underlying instinct keeps showing up. Notice the individual person in the sea of thousands and do something about it. And this isn't even the only time this kind of instinct has shown up in a way that stopped an actual show. Back in Brussels, at King Baudouin Stadium during the tour's early European stretch, one of the ARIRANG shows was actually paused mid-performance because Jimin noticed a fan in the crowd who appeared to be in distress. Rather than continuing through it, or leaving it to security to quietly handle in the background, he stopped what he was doing on stage and made sure the situation was being taken care of before the show picked back up. That's not a small thing to do in front of a full stadium. Pausing a produced arena show, even briefly, means overriding the momentum of the entire production because one person in a crowd of tens of thousands needed help. It's the same underlying instinct you see in Foxborough with the sign, and in Munich with the jacket. Notice the individual, not just the crowd. It's also worth mentioning this isn't just something fans are picking up on, it's showing up in how Jimin is being measured outside the fandom too. In July 2026, the Korea Corporate Reputation Institute ranked him the #1 boy group member individually for that month, a ranking system that factors in public perception and brand reputation, not just fan voting. That's obviously a different kind of data point than a viral concert clip, but it's worth putting next to everything else here because it suggests the pattern people are picking up on in these tour moments isn't just a fandom narrative, it's something registering in how he's perceived more broadly too. None of this is to say every artist on a stadium tour should be expected to personally manage every fan interaction or pause a show for every issue in the crowd. That's an unrealistic standard, and most tours simply aren't built to allow for that kind of individual attention at this scale. It's exactly why moments like the Brussels pause, the Munich jacket, and now this Foxborough mic tease keep getting singled out and reshared. They stand out precisely because they're not the norm, even for artists who genuinely care about their fans. It's rare enough to be worth talking about, and consistent enough across 3 separate legs of the same tour that it starts to look less like a one-off and more like an actual pattern in how Jimin approaches being in front of a crowd. Now, if you want to know what I think happens next with a clip like this, and this is just my read on it, so take it as commentary, not fact, I'd expect it to keep circulating through fan accounts for a few more days, probably picking up more angles and more footage from different sections of the stadium as people go through their own recordings from that night. Whether it eventually gets picked up by the bigger outlets the way the Munich jacket moment did really depends on how much additional footage surfaces and how the wider fandom decides to run with it. Either way, I'll be keeping an eye on it, and if there's an update or a clearer angle of the moment, I'll cover it. Before I wrap this one up, I want to hear from you actually, because I think this is one of those moments where the comment section usually ends up more interesting than the video itself. If you were watching live, or if you've seen a different angle of this clip than the one I'm describing, drop it below, because I guarantee there are people watching this who haven't seen it yet and would love the extra footage. And if you're the kind of viewer who's been quietly watching this channel without subscribing, I see you, and now's genuinely a good time to fix that, because between this tour, the album rollout, and everything else happening around all 7 members right now, there's no shortage of stuff to cover, and I'd rather you not miss it. At the end of the day, This is a small moment. It's 20, maybe 30 seconds of footage from one night out of dozens on this tour. But I think small moments like this are actually the ones worth paying attention to, because they're the ones nobody wrote a script for. Nobody told Jimin to notice that sign. Nobody told him to reach for his own mic and threaten to launch it into the crowd just to get a reaction. He just did it, because in that exact second, in front of that exact crowd, it felt like the right thing to do. And honestly, that's the version of these artists I think most of us actually want to see. Not the polished, pre-approved, camera-ready version, but the split-second, off-script. I'm just going to mess with my fans for a second version. That's what this clip is. That's why it's spreading. And that's exactly the kind of moment I'll keep bringing you from every stop on this tour, so make sure you're subscribed. Turn on notifications if you don't want to miss the next one, and drop a like on this video if you want to see more breakdowns, just like this one. I'll see you in the next video.